My business partner stole my invention and my wife, but what happened next shocked everyone in court. I'm Dan, 45 years old, software engineer turned small business owner. And looking back now, I should have seen the warning signs a mile away. But let me start from the beginning, back when life felt like one of those perfect suburban Instagram posts. You know, the ones where everything looks effortlessly happy and nobody mentions the credit card debt or the passive-aggressive fights about whose turn it is to take out the trash. Lisa and I had been married 8 years. She was 42, ran this wellness blog that somehow pulled in decent money from sponsored yoga mat posts and detox tea reviews. Our blended family included Mia, her 15-year-old daughter from her first marriage, who'd become the closest thing I'd ever have to my own kid. We lived in one of those neighborhoods where everyone waves from their driveways and pretends to care about the HOA newsletter. Weekend barbecues, family vacations to the lake, and way too many trips to Home Depot for projects I'd never finish. And then there was Marcus. Marcus Chin had been my business partner for 6 years, and my best friend for even longer. 46, charismatic as hell, the kind of guy who could sell ice to an Eskimo and make them thank him for the privilege. Where I was the spreadsheet guy buried in code and algorithms, Marcus was pure sales magic. We used to joke that we were like Jobs and Wozniak, except with more beer and fewer black turtlenecks. Our little tech company, DataFlow Solutions, was finally hitting its stride. We developed this inventory management system that was getting real traction with mid-size retailers. Nothing flashy, but solid. The American dream in ones and zeros. Marcus was practically family. He showed up to every birthday party, helped me install that deck Lisa had been nagging about for 2 years, and knew exactly how I liked my coffee. The guy was at our dinner table more nights than not. Lisa loved him too. Always said he brought out my fun side, made me laugh more. She'd post these group photos on Instagram, Marcus, me, her, and Mia at some restaurant or hiking trail, all of us grinning like we'd figured out the secret to happiness. Look at my beautiful blended family, she'd capture them, always with about 15 hashtags about gratitude and blessed life. I ate that stuff up, shared those posts on LinkedIn with captions about work-life balance and the importance of surrounding yourself with good people. My professional network probably thought I was living the dream. Hell, maybe I was. Our house was this 4-bedroom colonial with a 2-car garage in one of those kitchen islands that's supposed to bring families together. Lisa had it decorated in that modern farmhouse style everyone was obsessed with. Shiplap walls, inspirational signs about home being where the heart is, the whole 9 yards. Sunday dinners were our thing. Marcus would bring wine, Lisa would cook something she'd found on Pinterest, and Mia would actually put down her phone long enough to tell us about school drama. Those moments felt real in a way that made all the mortgage payments and business stress worth it. I'd sit there, watching my wife laugh at Marcus's stories about difficult clients, watching Mia roll her eyes at our dad jokes, and think, this is it. This is what I've been working toward my whole life. The irony wasn't lost on me that I made my living helping other businesses track their inventory, keep everything organized and accounted for. I thought I had my own life cataloged just as neatly. Turns out I was missing some pretty important items from my spreadsheet. But that night, God, it must have been 6 months ago now, sitting around that kitchen island with my family and my best friend, I genuinely believed we'd figured something out that most people spend their whole lives searching for. I had no idea I was about to lose it all. The first crack in paradise started with Lisa's phone. She'd always been attached to the thing. Running a wellness blog meant constant engagement with followers, responding to comments about her morning smoothie recipes, or whatever crystal was supposed to fix your chakras that week. But this was different. The phone started going face down during dinner. She'd excuse herself to take calls in the other room, voice dropping to a whisper. When I'd walk into the kitchen, she'd be hunched over the screen, fingers flying, but the moment she saw me, everything would disappear into her pocket. Just coordinating with my new brand partner, she'd say, flashing that smile that used to make my day. but now felt like a customer service response. Those Sunday dinners I'd loved so much started feeling like a chore we were all performing. Lisa would make the food, but spend half the meal distracted, checking notifications. Mia barely looked up from her own phone anymore. Even Marcus seemed off, still cracking jokes, but the timing felt forced, like he was reading from a script he'd memorized years ago. I tried to convince myself it was normal. Families evolve, right? Kids become teenagers, wives get busy with their careers, best friends don't need to be joined at the hip forever. If denial was cardio, I'd have a six-pack. The business changes were subtler, but somehow more unsettling. Marcus started taking client meetings without me, claiming he was streamlining our processes and that I'd be more valuable focused on the technical side. Made sense on paper. I was better with code than people anyway. But something about his explanations felt rehearsed. He'd throw around buzzwords about pivoting our strategy and maximizing our individual strengths, corporate speak that wasn't like him at all. The Marcus I knew talked about ideas with his hands, got excited about possibilities, made everything sound like an adventure we were embarking on together. This new Marcus felt like he was managing me. I started working later, partly because there was more technical work to handle solo, but mostly because home had begun to feel like a place where I was constantly reading the room wrong. Lisa would be in her home office with the door closed. Mia would be in her room blasting music that seemed specifically designed to announce her misery to the world. The gym became my refuge. An hour on the treadmill, another hour lifting weights, trying to run or press away this growing knot in my chest that I couldn't quite name. Anxiety, paranoia, middle-age insecurity. I wish I had a better cordialry. My buddies from college would probably tell me to just talk to Lisa about it. But when did I become the kind of guy who calls his college friends about marriage problems? We mostly texted about fantasy football and whose kids were doing what sports. So I started writing things down instead. Not journaling exactly. That sounded too much like something Lisa would suggest after reading an article about emotional wellness for men. But I'd open a notes app on my phone and type out observations, questions, the kind of stuff that kept cycling through my head at 3 a.m. Lisa said she had a brand partnership call at 8 p.m. on a Tuesday. Who schedules business calls at 8 p.m.? Marcus mentioned a client in Portland I've never heard of. When did we start working with clients in Portland? Mia asked if she could spend more weekends at her dad's place. She's never wanted to do that before. Dr. Rodriguez, my therapist. Because, yes, I'd started seeing a therapist. Another middle-aged cliche I never thought I'd embrace. Kept encouraging me to trust my instincts. "What's your gut telling you?" she'd ask during our weekly sessions. My gut was telling me that the people I loved most were slowly, systematically pulling away from me, but my brain kept offering alternative explanations. Lisa was building her business. Marcus was being a good partner by handling his strengths. Mia was being a normal teenager. The problem with being a systems guy is that you want everything to make logical sense. You want to identify the bug, isolate the problem, implement a fix. But relationships aren't code. Sometimes they just drift. The first real red flag came through Lisa's laptop. She had left it open on the kitchen counter while she showered, and I needed to check our shared calendar about Mia's parent-teacher conference. Nothing sneaky about it. We'd always used each other's devices interchangeably. But when I opened her email, there was a thread between her and Marcus I'd never seen before. The subject line was Q3 Strategy Update, which seemed weird since Lisa had nothing to do with our business planning. The messages were professional enough on the surface, but something about the tone felt off. Marcus writing about aligning our vision for the future, and Lisa responding with comments about trusting the process and being patient while everything comes together. What process? What future? What were they aligning that didn't include me? I closed the laptop and told myself I was overthinking it. Maybe Lisa was helping Marcus with some presentation. Maybe they were planning a surprise for my birthday, which was still months away. But the seed was planted. Over the next few weeks, I started noticing things I'd previously written off as coincidences. Lisa would light up when Marcus texted, the same way she used to light up when I'd come home from work. She'd like his old photos on Instagram, pictures from years ago that she had no reason to be scrolling through. Marcus left his phone at our house one night after dinner. When it buzzed with a text notification, I glanced at the screen without thinking. Just a reflex, the way you might glance at any ringing phone. The message preview made my blood cold. Can't wait to see you tomorrow. This is getting harder to hide. From Lisa. I stared at that phone like it might explode. My first instinct was to wake them both up, demand an explanation, get everything out in the open. But something held me back. Maybe cowardice, maybe strategy, maybe just the desperate hope that there was still some innocent explanation. Instead, I took a photo of the screen with my own phone and spent the rest of the night staring at the ceiling, trying to figure out what this referred to and why it needed to be hidden. The empty dinner table became our new normal. Lisa had client calls, Marcus had evening meetings, Mia had study groups that seemed to last until bedtime. I'd make enough food for 4 and end up eating leftovers for the next 3 days. Those inspirational signs about home being where the heart is started feeling like they were mocking me. I kept telling myself that suspicion was a poison that could destroy something good if you let it. That trust was a choice, loyalty was a virtue, and jumping to conclusions was for people who watch too much daytime TV. But late at night, in the space between sleep and waking, I couldn't shake the feeling that I was the only one in my family who didn't know what was really going on. The people I'd trusted most were keeping secrets, and those secrets were about to change everything I thought I knew about my life. The end of my marriage started with a software update. Our business banking platform had been glitchy all week, and I'd been putting off the monthly reconciliation because I was tired of fighting with error messages. But on Thursday night, with Lisa at another mysterious wellness retreat and Mia locked in her room, I finally sat down to sort through our accounts. That's when I found the transfers. $23,000. Gone. Moved to an account I'd never seen before, authorized by Marcus using credentials I didn't know he had. I stared at the screen for a full minute, refreshing the page like maybe the numbers would rearrange themselves into something that made sense. But there it was. 6 months of steady withdrawals, all approved by my business partner, all sent to Chin Consulting LLC. Marcus had been stealing from us. From me. My hands were shaking as I pulled up more records, following the digital trail he'd been so careful to hide. It wasn't just the money. He'd been setting up his own competing business, using our client contacts, our intellectual property, everything we'd built together. But that wasn't even the worst part. The same system glitch that exposed the financial records had also synced some of Marcus's personal accounts to our business messaging system. And there they were. Months of messages between him and Lisa, right there in our company's Slack channel like some kind of cosmic joke. Dan's working late again. Come over after 8. I can't keep pretending to be happy when you're not here. Soon we won't have to hide anymore. He's so focused on work he barely notices what's happening. The timestamps went back 7 months. 7 months of them planning their future, while I made dinner for everyone and posted about our happy blended family on LinkedIn. I screenshotted everything. Every message, every transaction, every lie they'd wrapped in friendly dinners and family game nights. My entire support system hadn't just collapsed, it had been systematically dismantled by the 2 people I trusted most. The funny thing about betrayal is how it changes your wiring. All that therapy about trusting my feelings, all those nights lying awake wondering if I was paranoid. Suddenly, I wasn't sad anymore. I was focused. Problem-solving mode, Dr. Rodriguez would probably call it. I had data, I had evidence, and I had work to do. I secured the business account that night, changed every password Marcus had access to, and sent copies of everything to 3 different email addresses. By morning, I had a consultation scheduled with James Morrison, the divorce attorney Lisa's sister had used during her messy split. Dad's old fishing cabin up at Lake Simcoe had been sitting empty since he passed 2 years ago. I'd been meaning to sell it, but something had always held me back. Now I understood why. I packed a bag, left a note on the kitchen counter, and drove north without telling anyone where I was going. The cabin smelled like motor oil and old pine, exactly the way it had when I was 12, and Dad would bring me up here to teach me how to cast a line properly. "Sometimes a man needs to think without distractions," he used to say. I spent 3 days organizing evidence and returning calls from my lawyer. Lisa texted constantly at first. "Where are you? We need to talk. This isn't like you." But I didn't respond. Marcus tried calling, probably wondering why he couldn't access our business systems. Let them wonder. By the time I drove back to town, they'd already started their damage control campaign. Lisa had called my sister, my co-workers, even Dr. Rodriguez, painting me as a workaholic who'd been neglecting his family, a man so buried in spreadsheets that he'd missed all the signs that his marriage was falling apart. "Dan's been so distant lately," I heard through the grapevine. "We've been trying to make it work, but he's never home, never present." Marcus, meanwhile, was telling clients that there had been creative differences about the company's direction, and that he was starting fresh with a new venture. Clean, professional, like he was just another entrepreneur following his dreams. I walked into that courtroom ready to lose everything, or finally win something back. Lisa and Marcus arrived together, both dressed like they were heading to a job interview, both looking like people who had their story straight and their lawyers prepared. What they didn't expect was Mia. My lawyer had subpoenaed financial records, business communications, all the digital evidence I'd compiled during those long nights at the cabin. But the real bombshell came when James Morrison stood up with a composition notebook in his hand. "Your Honor, I'd like to present evidence from Mia Chen Hartwell, the plaintiff's stepdaughter." I'd found the journal in Mia's room the night before I left for the cabin. Not snooping, just checking on her, because she'd seemed even more withdrawn than usual. She'd left it open on her desk, and one page caught my eye. "Marcus told me Dan doesn't really love me because I'm not his real daughter. He said that's why Dan works so much, because he's just waiting for me to turn 18 so he can leave. But I see how Dan looks at me when he thinks I'm not watching. Marcus is lying." 15 months of entries. Mia had been documenting everything. The late-night phone calls, the times Marcus would come over when I wasn't home, the way Lisa would lie about where she'd been. She'd been protecting me the only way a 15-year-old knew how. When James read those entries aloud, Lisa's composure cracked like ice on a warm day. She started crying. Not the pretty, dignified tears you see in movies, but the ugly, desperate kind that come when your whole world is collapsing in public. Marcus tried to interrupt, started saying something about a teenage girl's journal not being admissible evidence, but the judge cut him off. "Mr. Chen, you are not a party to these proceedings. Please remain seated." The financial records spoke for themselves. The messages were undeniable, but Mia's words, her raw, honest account of watching her family disintegrate while trying to make sense of the adults around her, that's what sealed it. I wanted to stand up and scream. I wanted to ask Lisa how she could look at me every morning for 7 months while planning her exit strategy with my best friend. I wanted to ask Marcus if the money was worth destroying a friendship that had lasted longer than most marriages. But I didn't. I sat there, stone-faced, while my lawyer presented the evidence and my soon-to-be ex-wife fell apart on the witness stand. When it was over, when the judge had ruled in my favor on every count, custody, business assets, even damages for the embezzled funds, I walked out of that courtroom without saying a word to either of them. Justice felt quieter than I'd expected, less satisfying, more like an ending than a victory. But sometimes, an ending is exactly what you need to start something new. The paperwork made it official, but the real victory happened on a Tuesday night 3 months later, when Mia asked if she could invite a friend over for dinner. Full custody meant she was mine now, not legally, since I'd never adopted her, but in every way that mattered. The judge had been clear about Marcus staying away from both of us, and DataFlow Solutions was entirely mine again. Turned out stealing from your business partner and manipulating his kid doesn't play well in family court. Lisa tried to reconcile exactly once. She showed up at the house on a Saturday morning with coffee and bagels, like we were having some casual catch-up instead of our first conversation since the courtroom. "I made mistakes," she said, sitting at that kitchen island where we used to plan our perfect Sunday dinners. "But we had something real, Dan. We can work through this." I looked at her sitting there, still beautiful, still that same woman who used to laugh at my terrible dad jokes and post those Instagram photos about our blessed life. But all I could think about was Mia's journal entry, the one where she wrote about feeling like a stranger in her own home, while the adults around her played out their drama. "Mia starts therapy on Thursday," I told her. "She needs stability right now, not more chaos." That was the end of that conversation. The first few months were rough. Mia and I had to figure out how to be a family of two, which is harder than it sounds when you're both dealing with the aftermath of betrayal. She'd test boundaries, stay out past curfew, challenge every rule, like she was waiting for me to prove I'd abandon her too. But we got into a rhythm. I started cooking actual meals instead of relying on takeout. Nothing fancy, just spaghetti and meatballs, grilled cheese and tomato soup, the kind of comfort food that says you're home and you're safe. Mia would do homework at the kitchen counter while I prepped dinner, both of us just existing in the same space, without having to perform happiness for anyone. Dr. Rodriguez helped me understand that healing isn't linear. Some days I'd feel like I had everything figured out, and others, I'd find myself staring at old photos on my phone, wondering if any of it had been real or if I'd been living in a delusion for 8 years. But slowly, I started reconnecting with parts of myself I'd forgotten existed. Called up Jake from college, started playing basketball again at the community center, volunteered at the local robotics club where kids Mia's age built robots and learned programming. Turned out I was pretty good at explaining code to teenagers, and they didn't care about my divorce drama or trust issues. One of the other volunteers was Sarah, a divorced mom whose 12-year-old son was obsessed with building battle bots. She had this way of laughing at her own mistakes that reminded me what it felt like to be around someone who wasn't performing all the time. We started getting coffee after robotics meetings. Nothing dramatic, no love at first sight nonsense. Just two people who'd been through the ringer and were figuring out how to trust again. She didn't need me to be anything other than who I was, which was more attractive than all the Instagram perfect romance I thought I'd wanted. The business started growing again once I wasn't distracted by wondering what Marcus was really doing in all those solo client meetings. Turns out our inventory management system was actually pretty good. It just needed someone who wasn't secretly shopping it around to competitors. I hired 2 new developers, moved to a bigger office, even started posting on LinkedIn again. But this time, instead of curated photos of fake family bliss, I shared articles about small business growth and software development, professional stuff, real stuff. The house felt different too. We took down most of Lisa's inspirational signs, not out of spite, but because they belonged to a version of our family that didn't exist anymore. Mia hung up some of her art projects. I put up a whiteboard in the kitchen for grocery lists and homework reminders. Less Pinterest perfect, more functional. Sunday dinners became our thing again, but different. Sometimes it was just Mia and me eating pizza and arguing about which Marvel movie to watch. Sometimes Sarah and her son would join us for spaghetti night, and the kids would disappear upstairs while we talked about everything except our ex-spouse. Mia started calling me Dad instead of Dan sometime around month 6, not in some big emotional moment, just casually while asking if I could drive her to soccer practice, like it was the most natural thing in the world. Maybe it was. I still keep a journal, but the entries are different now. Less anxiety, more gratitude. Less what if and more what's next. I write about Mia getting her first job at the smoothie place in the mall, about Sarah's son teaching me about advanced robotics techniques, about how quiet the house feels when it's just me and it doesn't feel lonely anymore. Looking back, I think I spent so many years focused on building the perfect life that I forgot to live the real one. All those Instagram posts about blessing and gratitude. I was so busy documenting happiness that I missed the actual moments when they happened. These days, our dinners aren't perfect. Sometimes it's just takeout containers on paper plates, while Mia tells me about drama with her friend group and I pretend to understand why someone named Kaylee is being totally fake about something involving TikTok. But they're real, and real, it turns out, is enough. More than enough, actually. It's everything.